Peace and life, family. I hope that you are well. I hope that your quarantine is going well. I am enjoying mine. I told y'all I relish in this type of time. I like to be quarantined anyway. But I really just hope that y'all are doing well. Everyone is taking care of themselves. I just wanted to come through with a quick lock update. So for those of you who do not know, I am a freeform locker. I have been freeforming for almost 6 years now. It'll be 6 years in June of 2020. I started Freeform in June of 2014. I started from bald and I am here. Let me make sure I'm covered up, and then let me lift up so you can see like how far they go down. But yeah, so they come down pretty far. From the back, they are probably like lower back length, like upper lower back, if that makes sense. I can actually like reach back and touch my locks. Which is a lot of growth for me. I was looking back at some pictures, even from last year, where like even from the front, my locks were maybe like right here, and now they have grown so far. And it seems like they are continuing to grow pretty quickly. I don't do much to my hair at all. I have like a lot of wash tutorials. I have a winter wash tutorial. I have a summer wash tutorial. I have a drying tutorial. How to moisturize locks, 5 tips to grow your locks fast. So I have a lot of videos explaining exactly what I do to my locks. So I'm not going to go through and explain all of that again. But just, I really don't do too much to my locks. I leave them alone. I only use natural products on my locks. I do herb rinses. When I wanted like a deep cleanse, I'll use Dr. Bronner's Castile soap. Right now, the citrus Castile soap is my favorite. I love Dr. Bronner's citrus Castile soap. I've been like living by that for my entire body. You definitely have to dilute it because it is very strong. To moisturize my locks, I use avocado oil, aloe vera, coconut oil, and that is it as of right now. And I am here. I wash my locks maybe like once a week, sometimes like once every week and a half, depending on how much like my locks have been out. And sometimes I even wash it more often than that if I've been like at a place where people have been smoking, or at a place where I feel like the energy has been very toxic. I'll definitely wash my locks after that. I do vinegar rinses every once in a while. I had to cut back on the vinegar rinses because I noticed that it was like very harsh on my hair, and I've dyed my hair in the past. I have another video about me dyeing my locks, but as you can see, I've dyed my hair, so I'm very mindful of not using harsh chemicals and stuff on my hair. Even if it is the apple cider vinegar rinse, it's still a pretty harsh chemical. But yeah, I just wanted to come to you guys with a quick update because I noticed that my locks are changing. I did another video about the phases of locks, and I talked about how when you reach the full adult lock stage, your locks are usually pretty set, how they are, but I'm noticing that a lot of my locks, for some reason, are starting to combine even more, and I'm not doing anything different. I'm not washing my hair any differently. I'm not really doing anything different. So I don't know what's causing them to combine more like this, but my locks have always combined. Starting from bald, you'll notice if anybody starts their locks from scratch. I've had 2 sets of locks. So my first set, I started from an afro, and I noticed when I started from an afro, I had huge Congo locks. This is my second set, and starting from bald, I noticed that the locks formed much more smaller. I had like little tiny, as they developed, little tiny twists, and then they started combining. So you'll see some of my locks at the very tip combined from like very much smaller locks. Let me see if I can find some more. And then I have a couple locks that just remained very tiny and didn't really combine with anything. Oh, this is another one. So this is a very tiny lock that I have, one of my skinniest actually. And this is another 2-headed dragon. So some of my locks started out, I'm gonna go to the back because I have a couple back here that were like tiny, and then they combined together. And some of them are like, have little 3 like this, boom. So you see, like I had my locks started out very small like this, and then they all started combining over time. So my locks have always been combining, but then for a while they took a break, and I didn't have any joining together or marrying together. What can cause locks to marry together is just simply the natural process of the hair starting to mat together. Some people choose to separate or pull it apart, and some people just let them marry. I'm a person that just lets them marry. And So I have like a lot of 2-headed dragons, 3-headed dragons everywhere. And they all start at different phases, but I'm noticing that a lot more are developing throughout my hair. So like even here, these are 2 different locks. So this one is already a 2-headed dragon. It's 2 locks that combined. This is one. And now this is combining. I don't know if you guys can see that, but you see? Now it's combining, and I'm not gonna separate it or anything. I'm just gonna let it combine. But yeah, I'm just kind of like, oh wow, my locks are really definitely changing. This is another one. You see, this is already a 2-headed dragon. Well, actually 3-headed, because this one was a 2-headed dragon that then combined with this one. And now we have a 3-headed dragon here. And then you see how I can move it, and all of that is moving because it's all connecting together. And I'm not going to bother to try to separate it. See, this is another 2-headed dragon that this is connecting to. So I'm not going to bother to separate it if it stays that way. Sometimes they'll naturally separate on their own. I'll be able to know whether or not it's going to separate. Like this will probably separate, because you see it's only connected by like a couple pieces of hair. So this will probably naturally separate on its own. But this up here, because this is connected by more hair, see, that's a thicker connection. This part probably won't separate. So these will probably join together. These will probably join together. This and this. You see that connection? It'll probably join together. So I just was like really playing in my hair and just like wandering through it. I'm not going to go too close on my scalp because y'all, it might be a little linty in there. So I'm not going to go too close. But yeah, so you see this, like little strands like this, it'll naturally separate on its own. And I said I was going to do a video about how to separate your locks without popping them and breaking them. And essentially this is the lesson, right? So the lesson about separating locks is, I noticed that as I watch certain people separate, they pull and pop and break their locks apart, especially people who have been freeforming for a while. I'll notice that they'll go to a loctician, and the loctician will bust up. The loctician will bust up their locks. Like, you can hear them breaking and popping apart. And that just makes me cringe, because you're literally breaking the bonds in your hair in a very unnatural way. Some people will use scissors to cut it, which when I had my first set of freeform locks, I started from the afro, and I had 11 big, huge Congo locks. Before there was 11, I had about 5 locks. I had one on the side, one on each side. I had a big one that was in the middle of my head that went all the way across like this. And then I had 2 smaller ones in the back. And that's exactly how my locks were set up. So I took some scissors and I cut the big one straight down the middle. I cut the ones on the side, and I kind of separated them with scissors. If you want to use scissors, I would rather you do that than busting them open, because when you bust them open, you're splitting ends, you're breaking bonds. It's a very unhealthy way to separate your locks. I would much rather you separate with scissors than to separate by busting your locks open. But another thing you can do is just let your locks naturally separate. However, please understand that if you're going to allow them to naturally separate, then you will have some locks that will marry together. Allowing your locks to naturally separate, once again, is just understanding that when you have like this, where you have locks that are only joined by a few thin strands of hair, that will naturally separate on its own. As you wash your hair the next time, that will naturally separate on its own. So you don't have to do any work to separate your locks in that way. Most of my locks, and I do understand the texture of my hair has a lot to do with it, but most of my locks naturally separate on their own. But as I explained earlier in the video, some of them have married. A lot of them have married together. I actually have more 2-headed dragons and stuff than not. So like in the middle of my head, this time that I started from starting bald, the middle of my head, remember the first time I explained when I had the fro, I had one big, huge Congo lock in the middle. This time it started out as a bunch of tiny locks. So these are like some of the tiny locks that I had in the middle, but they have now married and joined together with each other, and I'm okay with that. That doesn't bother me. I don't mind that. Whether they decide to stay small, decide to come together, things like that don't bother me. A part of the journey of freeforming is understanding that your locks are not going to have a uniform look. Your locks are not going to always look neat. They're not always going to look, tamed in a sense. They're freeformed. So a part of being a freeform is you're going to have locks that are different sizes. You'll have some thicker ones. You'll have some thinner ones. You'll have some locks that are, some grow shorter than others. Some of my locks grow much faster than other locks. This is another two-headed dragon I have that is also married here, and then I have this, see this lock right here, see how that's combining? Eventually that'll probably separate on its own, because look, see, it's only combined by a little hair. If I wanted to, I could pull this apart and it would pull easy, but I'm not going to do that because it'll separate on its own. But yeah, so I've had locks, you know, that are thinner, that are thicker, that marry together and become thicker locks. This is another little two-headed dragon that from when it first started, it was a tiny lock, a thicker lock, and it came together. And then once again, I have some skinnier locks that stand on their own. You know, I just let them do their thing and do what they want to do. I don't force my locks to separate at all. But once again, I started from scratch. Now, for people who are starting from a fro and you have very thick locks, or you may want them thinner, or you have thick locks, or your locks are your desired size and you just simply don't want them to marry together, separate. There's nothing wrong with separating. That's your personal business. I did a video before about the different types of locks, and I talked about the different types of freeform locks, and that video was a little controversial because I talked about, you know, semi-freeformers versus natural or organic freeformers and all that stuff. And I shouldn't say versus, because versus signifies competition. It's not a versus thing. It's just explaining that there is a difference. So semi-freeforming is freeforming where basically you allow your locks to form semi-freely, meaning you do cultivate them in some way, shape, or form. So any form of cultivation includes twisting your locks, separating your locks, or anything like that. And by force, that is cultivation. You are cultivating, you are doing things to manipulate your locks in order for them to lock. So people who use towels to twist their hair, that is cultivating your locks. You're not allowing them to form freely. You're using a towel to twist your locks. You're still cultivating your locks. If you start out with twist or whatever, you've cultivated your locks. If you are separating, you're cultivating your locks. Versus people who consider themselves natural or organic freeformers do not separate. They don't use anything to manipulate their hair into locking. They just allow the process to form freely. In that video, I also explained that, you know, the way your locks look does not determine whether or not you are a semi-freeformer or organic or natural freeformer. There are people who have huge Congo locks who manipulated their locks into looking that way. People braid their locks together. Some of them use thread and thread their locks together. Some people put rubber bands on their locks to hold them together so that they can get that really big Congo look, which is also cultivation. Your hair did not naturally form that way. You cultivated them or manipulated them in order to form into those big Congo locks. All of that is considered cultivation, which will still make them a semi-freeformer. They will still be considered a semi-freeformer. So any form of cultivating your locks is semi-freeforming. But I just want to say there's nothing wrong with being a semi-freeformer. I feel like, you know, a lot of freeformers, when you say like, oh, so you're a semi-freeformer, they get like offended, like it's a blasphemous thing to say to them. And it's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's just semi-freeformer just signifies that you have or you do something to manipulate your locks in some type of way, which is okay. That doesn't, you know, make your locks any less worthy or anything like that. It is still a part of yourself. It's a part of your crown. It's an extension of who you are. But I just really wanted to like dispel that myth, because I did notice that, you know, some people are hesitant to be honest about what they do to their locks out of fear that other people won't view them as a freeformer. And that honestly does not matter. You know, if someone admires your locks or someone wants to know, like, what do you do? Be honest and tell them. I have people who ask me all the time, like, you know, what do you do to your locks? Do you separate? Do you? And I don't separate, but at the end of the day, someone may consider me a semi-freeformer because I've dyed my locks. That's not natural. That's not fully organic. I've dyed my locks. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter, you guys, okay? Just do what you feel is best for you. Your hair is your hair. Nobody can tell you anything about it. You know what I'm saying? It's your thing. So whatever your spirit leads you to do with your hair, that's what you do. Don't worry about anyone else's judgment. But I just wanted to give y'all a quick update on how my locks are progressing. As I said, I ain't gonna come too close because it may be a little linty in there right now because I haven't delinted in a long time. See? In order to de-lint, I'll usually just go through on camera like this and like pick any pieces of lint out of my hair. I usually don't have much lint because I keep my hair covered for the most part when I go outside. I wear like a lot of head wraps and hats and stuff like that. Look, you see all of this is connected together, but you see it's mostly connected by thin strands of hair. So that'll naturally separate on its own. So I'm not worried about that. Like, see, all of that is connecting. But that'll all naturally separate on its own. My hair does a pretty good job of separating on its own. But if your hair does not, don't be afraid to use scissors to cut those strands apart. If you are going to pull them apart, I think that you should just guide your finger along the little thin pieces of hair and see what direction, like where is it rooted, and maneuver each individual strand. Is that going to take a long time? Yes, it absolutely will take much longer than just busting them open, but your hair will be much healthier because of it. You don't want to break down those bonds in your hair because that just simply weakens your locks, and over time they'll start to break. You also want to make sure that the strands of hair go where they're supposed to be, or you will start having thin spots in your locks. So just be mindful of that. But just real quick, going back to how I de-lint my hair. Like I said, I'll normally just like have the camera up like this and I'll go through and I'll pick the lint out. Another thing I do is I just often go like do this to my hair a lot just to get any dust and lint out. I'll put water on my hands and just run them through my hair kind of harshly like this to get any excess dust and lint out. And then another thing I do is like my herb rinses definitely help de-lint my hair pretty well. And then sometimes, you guys, I'll run through my hair with a lint roller. Okay, I know that may be a little weird to some people, but I keep a lint roller and I will go through my hair, go through my locks with the lint roller, and I would just simply go like this and I'll move it through sections and I will use the lint roller and go through my hair. But like I said, I usually don't have much lint on my hair. I use a satin pillowcase at night. This is my pillow. I use a satin pillowcase at night. Sometimes when I'm in the mood, honestly, only when I'm in the mood, I'll sleep with a bonnet on. I have like one of those really big bonnets. I'll sleep with that on sometimes. And then, like I said, I just keep my hair wrapped up a lot when I go outside, so I don't have to worry about too much lint and stuff like that. And I also, when I'm in the house, I normally keep my hair up in a bun. Y'all will see me sometimes. I'll put my hair up and I'll have it like in a bun. Ooh. I'll just put it up like this and I'll put my little band on it and I'll have it in a bun and I'll walk around my house like that. But that's normally what I do, and it keeps the lint down pretty well, okay? So I hope this video was helpful when it comes to separating your locks in a healthy way. Like I said, just do not bust them up. Don't bust them up. Just gently either guide them apart strand by strand or just let them separate naturally, understanding that those thin pieces that they are connected by will naturally follow their own lock and go where they're supposed to go, especially if you are a person who does your hair a lot. I don't do my hair at all. I don't style my hair at all. I always either just wear my locks down, put them in a bun, or wear a head wrap. But if you are a person who does your hair a lot, you'll notice that your locks will naturally separate on their own because you're constantly moving them around and doing stuff with them. All right, but just be very mindful about busting up your locks because it can cause damage and eventually thin spots over time. Another thing that I want to remind you guys of, I had to tell my friend to stop wringing her locks out. You cannot wring your locks. When you wash your hair, do not wring them like this, because when you wring your locks like this, you are breaking down bonds in your hair and you will start to notice thin spots over time. Do not do that. I'm very transparent about my lock journey because I had to learn a lot of things the hard way. I told y'all in the previous video how I lost a lock. A piece of my lock broke off because it had got molded. One of my very first locks, it got molded because I was letting it get wet every day. So be mindful of like making sure you dry your locks. Be mindful of your diet. At one point, I was not eating well. I wasn't eating a lot at all. I was like not doing well, and I can literally see a thin spot across all of my locks. I don't know if y'all can see it well, but I can see a thin spot right here, and that's across all of my locks. All of my locks have that spot in the same area. See how it's thinner? And this is a thicker lock, but even right here, it's thinner. It has a thin spot in the same area, and that's the space from the time where I just was not eating the way I needed to eat. I was not eating a lot at all. I was just not doing well health-wise. That was around the time I got diagnosed with lupus, honestly. And I started noticing that my hair was thinning a lot. So I can see that space. So just be mindful to mind your diet. Cover your locks as much as possible to keep and reduce the lint, and just allow them to just do their own thing. Don't stress about whether they look maintained or stay in the same size or whatever. Just be free, family. Be free. Okay, enjoy your nights, enjoy your quarantine time. Be mindful to meditate and go within and just do you and take care of yourself. Drink your herbs, do your yoga, and be love, be light. Peace, family.